standardized test is any test that requires all test takers to answer the same questions in the same way and is scored in a standard or consistent manner. This makes it possible to compare the relative performance of individual students or groups of students. While different types of assessments may be standardized in this way, the term is usually associated with large-scale tests administered to large populations of students. For example,
FCAT, or the Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test, is a standardized test for students of the Florida public school system.
We've all taken it.
Yesterday, the preliminary writing results were released and only 27% of 4th graders passed with a 4.0 or better out of 6.
Those results are drastically different from a year ago when 81% of students passed the writing test. It dropped in 1 year from 81% to 27%, and 8th and 10th graders saw similar drops.
In response,
Commissioner Gerard Robinson proposed lowering a passing grade from 4 to 3.5. That's a passing grade at 58%. But even with the new grading system, the amount of passing kids would still be lower than what they were in 2011. So they've lowered the passing grade to 3 out of 6 this year, which equates roughly to the same amount of students passing as last year. Standardized test my ass.
So basically, we aren't even standardizing our standardized tests. So what are we doing? Spending billions. Around 1.7 billion to be exact, according to some researchers. Although this is just one fraction of annual K-12 spending, this money really adds up. If instead these funds were to be devoted to across-the-board pay raises, the average teacher would see their salary increase by about $550. So, even if we're a little flawed in our approach, these tests must be really important if we're spending so much money on them, right? Well, maybe not. Studies are actually showing that standardized testing does not improve student achievement. After the No Child Left Behind Act was passed in 2002, making testing mandatory in all schools, the U.S. dropped from 18th in the world in math to 31st place in 2009, with a similar drop in science and no change in reading. The National Research Council found no evidence that test-based incentive programs are working. They say, despite using them for several decades, policymakers and educators do not yet know how to use test-based incentives to consistently generate positive effects on achievement and to improve education. So, what are tests doing? Well, that's why they're under fire.
Some argue high-stakes testing has forced teachers to teach to the test, giving schools an excuse to cut civics and art classes because they're not a part of federal tests.
America's obsession with standardized testing is being blamed for our so-called creativity crisis. Instead of promoting innovation and critical thinking skills, the U.S. seems to be promoting the opposite, and the education system is being accused of inadvertently dumbing America down. This is because excessive testing does nothing more than teach children how to be good at taking tests. It reduces students to scores and gives them a skewed view of what it means to be intelligent. As Albert Einstein so famously said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. But let's imagine for a second that America has a perfect testing system. Our tests are fair and taken seriously, respected even. Standardized testing is still unnecessary. Let's take a look at Finland. Finland has been getting some serious recognition lately, and it's well-deserved. A survey called the PISA survey is conducted every 3 years by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in countries all around the world, comparing 15-year-olds' scores in math, reading, and science. Finland has ranked at or near the top in all 3 categories on every survey since 2000, right up there with the typically super-achieving countries like Singapore, South Korea, and China. The USA is not proud of its placement. The twist? Finnish students only take one standardized test, ever, and it's at the end of their high school career. This is compared to the 100 million tests taken annually in the United States collectively, and it's all for naught, because our scores just don't add up. We could all take a hint from Finland.